So, in this episode, we're going to look at how your marketing and communication strategy needs to change as you prepare to end your career or hand off your practice to a new owner. So, we're going to talk about what you need to do to plan for a retirement or sale, communication strategies to ensure that a smooth handoff, and the importance of potential rebranding during that transition. So, with me again is Dr. Leon Klempner. Thank you, Dr. Klempner, for joining me again.
Glad to be back.
All right. So, what are the considerations that should be thought about when you're looking into your exit strategy?
So, I think of the analogy of selling your house, if anybody's ever
Mm.
sold a home before. So, when you're towards the end of your career, and I've been there, so I can speak from experience,
Yeah.
the goal is selling the practice. You've worked hard for all of your career to build up some equity, and whether you're selling to an associate or a partner or to a DSO or an OSO, one of your biggest concerns should be to shore up the business so that you can make the largest profit from your life's work.
Mm.
So any smart exit strategy should include an increase, not a decrease in your marketing budget.
Mm. So, talk to me a little bit more about why a doctor looking to sell would want to start investing more money at that point.
So, I mean, the obvious thing is it's much more challenging to sell a practice that's on the decline.
Mm.
Who wants to buy a practice that's on its way down? Particularly young graduates,
Hmm.
I teach residents all the time,
Hmm.
and they come out, and if they're going to buy a practice, they want to buy a practice that is up to date,
Mm.
that has the things they're used to in their training in terms of the technical equipment, but
Hmm.
also they want the digital presence to be up to snuff.
Good point.
If you don't have a good digital presence, you're invisible to
Hmm.
your target audience, which are the digital natives. So, it's important even at the latter stages, particularly at the later stages of your career, to start thinking about how to update your marketing and your digital presence so that it pays off when you make the sale. Everybody talks about EBITDA, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
multiples of EBITDA,
Right.
earnings before interest, taxes, amortization. I'm not an expert in this
I
area,
think that
but
was right.
yeah, all I know is that multiples of EBITDA are what you're looking for. The higher, the
Hmm.
better. And so you want to make as much money as you can. Most orthos have relied on dental referrals and word of mouth for most of their careers. I
Right.
know I did.
Hmm.
But that's not going to cut it for a purchaser who doesn't have those relationships.
Yeah.
So marketing becomes vital to creating a new stream of new patients.
Hmm.
So we need to firmly believe that starting early um, in marketing is crucial. It's particularly if you're going to sell. All too often we have clients that come to us. I get orthodontists that call me and says, "Look, I want to sell in 6 months, but I know I'm not attracting anybody from the internet, or I'm weak in this area.
Mm.
So can you just, automatically, turn everything on and
Wave your
change
magic wand.
things?" It doesn't work that way. Yeah,
Yeah.
magic wand. It doesn't work that way, and it puts
Hmm.
us behind the eight ball right from the beginning.
Mm.
So we recommend that you have a strong digital marketing plan in place at least a year or two before you're thinking of selling. So at least we have some time to put things in place. And for forward-thinking orthodontists, I would say a 5-year a look ahead would be more appropriate.
Okay. So again, we're talking about well-established practices. So what exactly can a marketing company do to help them get kind of that leg up when they ultimately do want to sell? What are you doing specifically?
Yeah, well, I mean, we do what every other marketing company does, right? We
Hmm.
do we do Facebook, uh, Instagram, Google Ads, reviews. We do websites. We do SEO. We have patient queue. We have a portal for chat and HIPAA compliant. Okay, but that isn't enough.
Hmm.
That isn't enough.
Okay.
So You need to start with clear messaging, and I think that is the most important element that's missing for most orthodontists right now
Mm,
is the messaging. So the first thing we do is we don't assume because the practice is well established that it has clear messaging or
mm,
differentiation.
okay.
So we start
Yeah.
from the beginning with them as well, and make sure
Yeah.
that we are supporting what differentiates them. So a marketing firm, any marketing firm should start, number one, evaluate the practice differential value to make sure it's still on point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they've been in practice a long time, and maybe what made sense before doesn't make sense anymore. Things change.
Yeah.
Competitors come and go. Neighborhoods evolve. So reevaluating what you can consistently do well, what your patients value, and what the competition doesn't deliver
Mm-hmm.
helps to triangulate that differentiator and that proposition value that is the foundation of the website and all marketing that follows. So a good marketing agency should not only help develop the differentiated value, but as importantly, leverage the brand to drive as many qualified new patients as possible to enhance the attractiveness of the practice for purchase. So specifically, areas like Google and Meta paid ads and increasing those budgets become particularly important in the latter stages for mature practices looking to sell.
If a practice has a buyer in mind, should any of that marketing change as they work through that process, or are you just kind of carrying through towards the end and the handover?
Well, you know, when depending on whether we're representing the buyer or the seller, there are different considerations that need to take place. So, for example, for the seller, we don't want to do anything publicly until everything is signed, sealed, and delivered.
Okay.
We've seen too many issues come up in the last day when everything is supposed to be signed,
Mhm.
and some issue comes up on the legal front and kills the deal.
Yeah.
So, as a seller, you want to be very careful about announcing anything or investing too much until the ink is dry. That said, you need a plan in place so that once the ink is dry, everything can be put into place. That's not the time to start. That's the
Hmm.
time for implementation. So you have to be very cautious to mitigate issues like that, which could be very detrimental to the reputation of the practice.
Um, one thing, there are more practices now that are selling, or doctors who are selling their practices to a DSO or OSO to transition out. They might stay and still work for a couple of years, but they go under that umbrella before they transition out. What's your advice in that situation? Because you do have another brand, maybe that is coming on. Some practices do maintain their
Hmm.
identity, but there are other ones that do take on that corporate brand. What's your advice there?
Well, you know, speaking from experience
Ah, okay.
as somebody that has
Okay.
you know sold my practice to my partners,
Hmm.
you know, I felt I had an obligation, and I know many orthodontists feel this way, to the patients in my practice.
Hmm.
I want that practice to be successful. I want those patients to be well cared for and taken care of after I leave. So I think that for the most part, most orthodontists feel that way. There are instances where it's a, you know, a quick sale and gone, and but that's not usually the case.
Hmm.
Most orthodontists will stay on for a period of time, certainly to make the introduction, even if it's only a couple of months, or in the case of an OSO, a DSO, you know, you take that big money, you're locked in for a number of years,
Yeah.
you know. In any event, you want the practice to be successful. Sometimes you have a vested interest in the
Yeah.
finances of that as
Hmm.
well.
Right.
So it's in everybody's best interest to have continuity in terms of the marketing. What you don't want to do is shut everything down.
Hmm.
And that doesn't help anybody. So, coordination between the buyer and the seller and the marketing agency, I think is critical in terms of communication, in terms of style, even if it's going to transfer over to another marketing company.
Yeah.
Coordination and the handoff, it's in the best interest of everybody to be coordinated that way.
Okay. So once the practice is sold, you've talked a little bit about that there, but are there any other recommendations you have from a marketing or strategy standpoint?
Well, I mean, enjoy your retirement.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I will add that I do speak to a lot of orthodontists that are struggling with whether to sell or not.
Mm.
And they're in their latter stages of the career, some younger, some older,
Mhm.
and there's a lot of money being dangled in front of them to sell the practice. And I always talk to them, orthodontist to orthodontist,
Mhm.
about what's the plan after you leave.
Mhm.
What are your what's the what do you have in mind? What are you going to
Yeah.
do? What do
Yeah.
have you thought about it at all?
Yeah.
And some have carefully thought about it and they know exactly they want to do some traveling.
Yeah.
They have a list, and that's great. And
Hmm.
there's an opportunity to do that. But there are others that, well, I haven't thought about it that much. I just want to sell. I'm tired. I just want to get out. And I always caution those orthodontists that maybe you want to stay a couple of days. You can sell, but maybe you want to write in that, you have that option
Hmm.
of staying as an associate,
Hmm.
not for the money as much as just to keep active
Yeah.
and, you loved what you were doing and you can
Yeah.
still cash in and still have something going on. I never
Right.
would have sold my practice if I didn't have this opportunity with my partner and daughter, Amy, to start People in Practice.
Right.
So, we started it and all of a sudden I had two full-time jobs and I was 65 years old and I had to make a decision.
Right.
If it wasn't for People in Practice, I'd still be practicing. A
Mm.
couple, maybe 1 or 2 days a week. Orthodontists can do aligners well into their 80s and
Yeah.
90s sometimes.
Yeah.
So my advice to senior orthodontists that are thinking of selling is think about what you're going to do afterwards, and if you just love what you're doing, build it into the buyout, build it into the future, so that you can still do what you love, and still have the time that you want to do other things as well.
Well, Dr. Klempner, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing your personal experience with this. I think that's brought real insight to all of this.
Well, Allison, I appreciate the time.
All right. Well, to our listeners, and to our listeners, if you're interested in talking to Dr. Klepner, as he's mentioned, you can in a previous episode, I guess, you can DM him or reach out to them at People in Practice. So
Yep,
thank you
yep.
again.
Thank you,
All right.
Allison.
As always, thank you for joining us. Be sure to subscribe to the Orthodontic Products Podcast to keep up with the latest episodes, and be sure to check out orthodonticproductsonline.com to keep up with the latest industry news. Until next time, take care.